little bit about what I have learnt so far. So firstly, you would notice that I'm outside, but I'm not wearing a mask. Now, in the UK, the mask laws are very different to back in New Zealand. It's really relaxed, so it's really up to you if you choose to wear a mask or not. It's kind of a little bit optional, and I must admit, you do get quite comfortable not wearing a mask again. We've spent so long not wearing, having to wear masks, and then all of a sudden you come somewhere where 95% of people are just not wearing a mask, you automatically adopt it. So things like public transport, don't need to wear it, but definitely when you're on a plane, you must be wearing a mask. Now, I am traveling over to Germany after this, and the requirements are a little bit different once we start to head into Europe. And we must have an N95 mask to actually fly on the plane, rather than just a cloth mask that we're so used to. But I thought I'd just share with you, some of the things that I've really found really interesting so far. And one of them has just been how easy it has been to travel. After so long of border closures, and then all of a sudden we had to go through hoops to get tested, especially coming into New Zealand. And you also had to fill out documentation before you left the country, came back into the country. Just all of these things that you had to jump through. To get to the UK, it was so simple. We didn't have to fill out any forms. We just had to make sure that we had our international vaccine passport, and off we went. Landed in Singapore. Because we were transiting, didn't require anything there, but if you were traveling out of Singapore, you did have to complete a declaration. But we won't be doing that until we're returning. We'll be stopping over in Singapore and testing that out. But into the UK, simple as. Now, all those dramas about luggage, yep, they're there, but we chose not to carry any check-in luggage. We went fully carry-on, so I'm limited on clothes, limited on products. So it has been a definitely challenge, but I don't regret it. And people waited 30 minutes, but not the 3 hours that had been reported recently. So it's been really easy getting here. One thing I did forget was actually how long it takes to get to the UK. And back in the day, it was just you just switched off and you did it, and it was 24 hours. Yep, I forgot what 24 hours in a can flying felt like. So it took a little bit out of me, just the fact that there wasn't as many movies that I wanted to watch, but it was still great, and it's been really exciting to come back to the UK. One of the other things that has really stood out over the last couple of days, but more so yesterday when I was talking to agents, was just really that whole resources. People are resource poor. We're staying in a hotel that has over 800 rooms in it. And yesterday there was a fire drill, and it was just interesting to see that there was not enough resources just in that hotel to actually manage an evacuation. It was all okay. Nothing was serious. It was just we're putting money on it that it might have just been a routine fire drill. But we all got evacuated, and there was only 2 people looking after everyone that was evacuated. And considering it was an 850 room hotel, you would think there would be more people. So resources being poor is not just a common problem in New Zealand. We're definitely finding that in New Zealand, we don't have enough staff to run our businesses. And also from a tourism point of view, tourism took a massive hit. So we lost a lot of resources, and now it's about rebuilding, and it's that training process. So even though this hotel that we're staying in might have enough staff, they may not have enough staff that are actually trained to be able to perform the duties that they need to be doing. So resources is a problem everywhere, whether it be in hotels, whether it be on activities, whether it be even in restaurants, it's still a major issue. And even though we were hoping that with the border opening, we'll see some of those transient travellers coming into New Zealand, and even over here into the UK, they're still really light. And it's kind of weird question, and I'm going to put it out to you, where have they all gone? Where have all of our transient travellers gone that would normally fill those jobs that our locals wouldn't necessarily take up, or they're flexible hours enough to suit their needs? I'd love to know. So another thing I would like to share with you is also just the return. I can't explain the energy that we have here, just in regards to people getting back to normality. You come here to the UK and it is just like nothing ever happened. It was the same as when I was back in Sydney back in May. It just was a really different vibe. The fact that everything was so far ahead of where we were in New Zealand. And that's not a negative thing. I think the positive about the fact that we actually held back and we haven't forged forward, like lots of other countries, is that the fact that New Zealand is deemed as an extremely safe country, and the pent up demand for people to travel to New Zealand is huge. The only negative, you know, thing from that is, especially out of the US market, is there's that concern around the fact that Jacinda Ardern is going to shut the borders again if things got difficult. But I think the reality now is that we're so far through this pandemic that the severity of it has actually diminished in comparison to when it first started. So the likelihood of her shutting is probably quite low, but it's still something that people are thinking about. But for those markets that are just seeing past that, there is a huge demand to come back. There's a desire to travel in New Zealand. They feel like it's safe. They feel comfortable with it, but it's also that once in a lifetime trip. So they're going to plan a really big trip. So we're hoping to see that market return. Some of it return 22, 23, but definitely majority of it will return 24, 25, and expecting a big thing out of next summer. Not so much this summer. And the reason why we're not going to see much out of this summer is really because of the timing it took for New Zealand borders to open. It meant that people actually made decisions to go elsewhere. You know, they're planning 18 months out or 12 months out, and by the time the announcement of borders were opening, these people had already made their decisions of what they're going to do in their winter holidays. Now it's really exciting because as of the 1st of August, which was yesterday, but and this recording is yesterday, but for when this goes live, it will be earlier this week. The borders opened up to all visa and non-visa waiver countries. So that is a massive announcement, and it will be a game changer for us moving forward. So being here has been lovely. It's been lovely to break up my winter. Ooh, winter has been cold. Back in Marlborough, it has been absolutely drowning with cats and dogs, wet. So I don't miss that, but I do miss some of the simplicities of things that I love back in New Zealand. But it has been great being in warm weather. It's also been great catching up with agents that I haven't seen since I was last at market. And now, for those that don't know, when I used to be in market, it was 8 years ago. So it has been a real hoot catching up with people that I haven't seen for such a long time. But it is always a struggle, as you may know, if you've traveled for work, having to juggle what you do during the day, which is another time zone, to what's going on back home. There's lots of work to be done. So there's not as much play as one would expect, but it's still great to be here. So this is just a really quick update to just share with you that, you know, what I'm seeing here. You know, one of the things I will say that the cost of living here has definitely gone up, and I think that's across the globe. Just things are getting expensive and more expensive, and definitely with the exchange rate with New Zealand and the UK, it's definitely higher. It's definitely high. It's really not higher than usual, but it just feels higher because of the cost of living and the cost of items. So, you know, just general food items. And, you know, if you're here 5-10 years ago, it felt like relatively cheap, but now it just seems like it's on par with New Zealand, essentially. So I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to catch up with you when I'm in Germany and to share some tales of Germany. But so far, we're having a great time in the UK. We've had some really positive meetings, some really positive business conversations around driving tourism back to New Zealand, out of the UK market and out of the European market. And there's lots of positivity. And for those that I work with, I can't wait to share with you. And if you do are interested in how it's all gone, please just drop me a message and I'm more than happy to share. But until then, you have a great week, and I look forward to catching up with you soon.